Boom, we're live. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Political Head Trauma, where if Head Trauma have podcasts that sound like this. Tonight, we're doing a special. We're talking with Colby Jenkins running for Congress.
Can I see that?
And what's that?
Can I see the show?
Yeah, you're looking at it right there.
There, now. Excellent. I'm so excited for our guest tonight.
Yeah.
Colby is running for Congress, CD2. Mm-hmm. So the one great thing is he's been on our show before. We were lucky enough to get to know him. It wasn't that long ago. It was before convention. And he is a patriot. And he's currently serving in the reserve still. He was Green Beret. He's from St. George. So he lives in rural Utah. Even though St. George is growing quickly, massively,
Yeah.
But still considered rural Utah. And so I think he's been phenomenal with our delegates, and he's made quite an impression on our delegates. Mm-hmm. So we are very excited to welcome Colby tonight on our special Wednesday night edition.
Yeah, without further ado, let's bring him on. All right. Colby, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Hi, Colby.
Hi, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh.
Yeah. So, you had a good showing at the convention.
Yeah. It was an incredible day. I mean, to win by 14 points and to have Senator Mike Lee standing shoulder to shoulder with me was awesome. And
that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, we were just barely over 2 points away from getting 60% and being done with this. And so it was kind of sad is later, I guess we learned from some of the data that there had been a certain number of delegates who had credentialed in the morning but didn't vote because they had left. Because if you guys were there, it went till forever.
I didn't leave till almost 12:45.
Yeah, unreal. But so grateful that the majority of the delegates stuck it out. But boy, if there's just been the handful that didn't leave, given the 57% we had, we could have likely clinched it. But
that's the hard part, because a lot of your St. George delegates had such a long journey home.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm sure that, you guys, I don't think you understand. Some of us got there around 6:30 a.m. and we didn't leave till after midnight. And I had only a 30-minute drive home. But St. George has 4.5 hours, and I was so impressed with those who stayed. And I have to say, out of all the campaign shirts in all of the entire convention, yours were the most sought after. His campaign shirts were camo.
Oh.
All camo. And I don't pick favorites when we don't have a definite winner. So I'm saying that right now as the party chair. But I know that my kid nudged me a couple times. Mom, if you see those camo shirts, you get me one. I still didn't get one. You guys were sold out. Yeah. Well, they were all gone when I got there. So thanks to Brad Pratt, he said he would make sure that I would not be left behind there.
Nice.
Now, I do want to mention, you have been here in Tooele County on numerous occasions meeting with people at the Pratt's residence, and you'll be here Friday.
Yes. Yep. This Friday at 6:30 p.m. at Brad and Kay's home, the Pratts. I don't know. I guess I could give their address, or if people know where that is, we'd love to.
Absolutely, and I will be sharing. I'll be sharing that. Kay send me the announcement, so I'll share that on our page as well. But you guys, if you're from Davis County, I think it's worth the drive. We're not that far away. Or 40 minutes. And I think if you are trying to decide on a candidate, get in front of all of them, especially when they're in our county and they're in our county this much. I really, my hat's off to you, because that is a lot of work for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Campaigning thing.
My wife will be with me too. We're going to be in Delta tomorrow night. And then Tooele with you guys Friday. Then we'll be in Bountiful Saturday morning. And then I'm the Grand Marshal at the Monster Truck Rally Saturday night back here in St. George and Hurricane. And so we're 13 counties we're in. And I have some breaking news to share with you guys that happened about 2 hours ago on the Rod Arquette show.
Yeah.
So we haven't even been able to push it out just yet because it's still coming in. But
Breaking news on
Yeah, breaking
political head
news.
trauma.
so we've been working for a couple of days with Vivek Ramaswamy and his team. He's been tracking our progress, and he decided to come on Rod Arquette's show today and endorse me live, and spoke very complimentary of me, of our campaign, and why me versus my opponent, and why Utah is so special, and why we need to have conservative constitutional Republicans that are truly in and representing. And so, yeah, huge news to have Vivek come on and live on Utah's radio show and endorse me. So we're really excited about that.
That is awesome. And
Amazing.
Vivek,
boys. It's Vivek.
Vivek.
Like cake.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
Yes.
he is by far my favorite, just because everything he says mirrors how I feel, which is
He says
scary.
the quiet part out loud.
Yes.
It scares me because I know I'm a crazy person and not very bright. And when a smart person says the same thing, I get a little nervous. But
Yeah.
just everything he said, it mirrored exactly how I felt. But no, that's fantastic. Congratulations. And let's take a few minutes and rehash why you decided to throw your hat in the ring. What has motivated you to want to represent Utah in our Congress?
Yeah, well, thank you. And it begins with I'm a Utah native. I was born and raised in Roosevelt, Utah, the Uinta Basin, and my family homesteaded there. We go back generations here in Utah. And 31 years ago today, actually, well, that's when I graduated, but 31 years ago, I left the Uinta Basin to go to West Point and the military academy. And that launched me into a career of service. And I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution then 31 years ago. And no one has ever relieved me of that oath, nor will they. I continue to serve in defense of our Constitution. And so that launched me on a career path to become a Green Beret, where I served in combat and led a Special Forces A team in combat in Afghanistan first, and then in other areas. Coming out of combat, and this gets me to why I'm serving, just to understand the why. Coming out of combat, my command sent me to Washington, D.C. to a different battlefield where I became
Uglier battlefield.
Yes, yeah. Where people there, they smile at you and slide the knife in your back while they're smiling. At least in Afghanistan and other areas, I know who's shooting at me, more or less. But I spent several years in D.C. as a Green Beret liaison, working in Congress, in the Senate, and then over in the House, and then back in the Pentagon at the highest levels, working for the chairman and the vice chairman as a legislative director for the vice, and then worked in the corporate world for a while. And now my wife and I, as Utah natives, are back in Utah in St. George, where we own a home. We have 2 daughters. And so with all that context and experience in D.C. and just combat-tested leadership experience, seeing the state of our nation, seeing how we blew out of Afghanistan in the way that we did, and just the debacle that happened there left me with such angst, thinking, how can we have leaders that think that is okay? I wouldn't argue that Afghanistan was perfect. We made 20 years of mistakes, lots of things we could and should have done better. But the manner in which we left, and the reputation our nation now has as an ally in the world is unacceptable. And so that kind of lit the fire in me, thinking, well, what can I do about it? How do we have leaders that think this is okay as an Afghan veteran? And then when Chris Stewart resigned, I just started a new civilian job. So I'd never thought I'd run for Congress, but he resigned, and there was no way I could have jumped into that special election. I was just onboarding for a new job. So I was a precinct chairman. I was a state delegate. I thought I'll do my civic duty. I'll be involved. I'll support the candidates who do run. And as I watched that process unfold, and I got to know the candidates, and then ultimately saw Celeste win, I came away from that whole process just with a lot of buyer's remorse, a lot of unsatisfaction, thinking, man, we have got to do better. Our nation deserves better. We deserve better. We have to do better. And so with all of that stewing in me, and then ultimately seeing how Celeste began to vote in Congress, and talking with one of my Green Beret mentors who's retired, he just looked at me as we were having this type of conversation. He said, Colby, well, what are you going to do about it? Nobody's riding over the hill to save the day. You're a combat veteran, Green Beret. You've led troops in combat. You've bled for this nation. So what are you going to do about it? And I said, well, I guess I'm running for Congress. And he said, yeah, you're damn right you are. And so that was kind of the impetus to get me in the seat. And I filed as an exploratory candidate last fall just to test the waters, to see if the response would be well. And it was tremendous. We were able to raise funds. I got a lot of positive support, people who felt like me coming out of last summer's process. And so I officially filed in January once I could, and we haven't looked back.
That very good. I imagine that's a scary proposition when you think, am I really doing this?
Yes.
After you go and file, you go to bed that night and toss and turn.
Totally.
So let's say you win the seat. What are you going to do? How are you going to proceed into Congress and represent Utah? What do you want to give back to Utah when you get there? What will you change? How will you vote or function?
Well, without a doubt, the number one priority I've heard across the district, the 13 counties, is close the border. What are you going to do to close and secure the border? And so that's my first priority. Next to building my A team, building my own team to make sure we can function and work efficiently for you, my employers. The next priority is, what can I do to clear legislative obstacles for President Trump and his administration so that he can close the border, so that we as Congress can fund that and make sure that we close and secure the border. We all want legal immigration. We all want that. Our nation depends on that. But we can't continue to have what we have now. And so that would be my first priority. Priority 1A, if you will, would be, how can I now, with the Trump administration, get between the federal government overreach and our water and land? Our district, as you well know, water and land is critical to the functioning of our district. And right now we're at odds with the Biden administration. And the county commissioners that I meet with that are supporting me, just praying that, counting the days until we flip that, we get a new BLM director, new EPA, the whole attitude about water and land will change. And guess who's going to be their number one friend? Me. Me.
Well, so, Colby, this is something I don't think people realize. Am I really loud to you?
No, you're not.
Okay.
It's our sound in here.
So the one thing I don't think people realize, and I think we talked about this on the show when you were on last time, but Congress people go there not necessarily just to represent their district. I mean, they are the purse for the United States government. And so their job isn't necessarily to get goodies for their district. And for those of us that are conservatives saying, hey, let's turn it off, let's stop the spending, that may mean we may lose some of those goodies that our congressmen and women are doing for us as counties, as states. The senators may not be able to get funding for their state on these issues, but across the board, if we were to shut that sieve off, close our border, and actually focus more on our constitutional rights as a nation that we've watched just get trampled, I think that people need to understand, our local House leaders, state leaders, our state Senate, those guys are the ones that are supposed to get for us and what our county and what we need. But we elect you to go there with 3 others to represent Utah values, which are constitutional values, I hope, and conservative values, I hope. And, you're talking about Utah's lands, you're talking about our district's lands, but it's probably lands in California, lands in Oregon, lands all over the Western United States that the federal government owns and takes over. And we need our, just what you said, we need our protection, our constitutional protection. And the job that our military is actually for is to protect us, the Americans. And we need to make sure that the government is doing their job at protecting American liberties and protecting American borders. So that's something I really love, that you're focusing on, the right commander in chief gets in office where we can actually turn things around. But as a Congress, you're prepared to support that commander in chief because he's saying America first principles, and he's saying Constitution comes back and stop using the word democracy because we're not a democracy. Mike Lee is someone I value highly. And I appreciate the fact that if he doesn't vote on a bill, Utah may not get something out of it, but he also knows it's not a constitutional bill and it's actually taking freedom from us. And so I would like to discuss that with you and your thoughts, because we're seeing our Congress get these bills just this thick. And a lot inside those bills are trampling on the very thing we're sending you there to go and protect.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, but so much incredible insight, things to unpack there. I agree. And some huge contrast between me and my opponent, Celeste Malloy, on those points. An interesting thing about, and I'm so glad you highlighted that, you hire us, the 4 representatives from Utah, to go back and to limit government, to control spending, to make sure we have national security that's actually worthy of our nation. But we have 4 representatives doing that. And guess what's been happening? Those 4 have literally been canceling each other out. We've had 2 vote for the Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden omnibus packages, and we've had 2 vote against it. We had 2 vote to say that you can't have warrantless wiretapping. The government must have a warrant if they're going to look at U.S. person data. We've had 2 vote for it and 2 vote against it. So those 4 are only 4 representatives who oddly enough just continue to circle each other, have essentially made themselves irrelevant on those critical issues of spending, individual liberty. To say that it's okay to allow the government, and this is a separate issue, FISA we could talk about, to look at U.S. person data without a warrant because we've given them more rules now, we've reformed it, now they're going to be more obedient. That's not okay. That's why we have the 4th Amendment. We have an amendment that goes back to our founding fathers, and that's one reason why Senator Lee looked at me and the contrast and said, "This is not okay." Our Utah delegation is canceling each other out. They've become irrelevant on key issues. We need someone who's fought for this nation and who will fight for the Constitution, and those are areas that I'm. So yeah, to your main point there, people who voted for the omnibus package that you're citing, there were 2 omnibus packages earlier this year. Normally we should have 12 individual appropriations bills. If we were in regular order, if we actually had leadership that could do that in the House, 12 bills. But that doesn't happen. So what do? They stack them this year into 2 packages of 6. Thousands of pages thrust on the members' desks at the last minute, right before a recess. And what did the members do? Rubber stamp, and we'll worry about it later. But in this last,
more than that, they whip each other into voting for it because it's got these huge stars behind major points that are valuable to all of us. And they say, look, you've got to do this to, you have to vote for this to get this. Yes. And there needs to be reform there. Just on that topic alone, we need to have 1-page bills or 1-topic bills that you are accountable for each individual vote rather than thousands of pages where you have to decipher and make a decision in the final hour on what to vote. You should either, like Mike Lee does, he's like, if I can't read the bill, if I can't understand the bill, if the ink's not dry and they're making us vote on something, I just vote against it.
Yes.
Because I'm not doing it justice. Well, that's simple and it's really smart. Yeah. Because you don't know what you're giving away.
Yeah. He was here this Monday here in St. George with me. We had a town hall on Memorial Day afternoon. We had over 300 people in person and over 200 people online. It was huge. And in talking about just this point, he said, if we as members of Congress set our bar so low that we're willing to accept breadcrumbs to bring home and not acknowledge the, as I call it, the iceberg of bad that's hidden under the water, and come home and say, well, I voted yes for the Biden $1.2 trillion omnibus because I got these few breadcrumbs. Well, guess what? That iceberg of bad, engulfs any good that we have, because now you've got farmers. Maybe there's a water project that my opponent brought home. Well, guess what? Those farmers who may be benefiting from that water project now have hyperinflation. Cost of fuel's gone up. Their feed is overwhelming. Interest on their equipment and on their farm is going. It's not okay. Imagine if the Republicans, with our slim majority, actually stood together and said, "No, Democrats, that's not okay. We're gonna actually hold the line here. We're gonna actually say no to a few things so that we can bring down spending and go home and look you, our employers, in the eyes and say, yeah, we did our best, instead of I rubber stamped it and I'm just choking down the rest."
I wonder if states became more independent. All Republican states should become more independent as states, and I think that would aid our Congress, our Republican congressmen, to be willing to say, no, we don't need to spend on that, because my state back home handles that. It's got it under control. But you'd have to have all Republican states gathered up, so that, because if we didn't, California would roll over Utah. They would take everything we have.
Yeah, including water.
So we need to have more states. We'd need to have Texas and Idaho and Nevada every third year, and Arizona every other year, and New Mexico every once a decade. And we'd have to have Oklahoma. We'd have to have them stand together so that different states, so that Texas could so that the conservative states could face down California, because otherwise California would strip mine Utah in a matter of a week, and they would put us out on the street, because we know California likes it when people live on the streets.
Yes, yeah, that's when people come here. So to your point, that last spending package, omnibus, $1.2 trillion. And by the way, there was one earmark in there that sent $500 million to the government of Jordan to defend their border.
Oh yeah.
And not imagine what we could do. So that only passed. Remember, we have the majority. Republicans have the majority. We have the power to stop that. But it only passed because every Democrat, every one of them, voted yes. And they picked off just enough Republicans to join them to get it across the finish line. And one of those Republicans was Celeste Beloy. The other was Blake Moore. And then our other two Utah Republicans voted against it. So there again, they canceled each other out. The bill passes. The majority of Republicans said no, but Celeste and others voted yes. And guess what? You're hiring me to not do that. I would not do that. That's not what you're hiring me to do.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, and our head of Congress, he was all for it too, and it does seem. I guess if I look at it geopolitically, I understand why our nation wants to flood other countries with the dollar, because the dollar's under threat like it's never been in the past, 70 years that it's been since Bretton Woods. And so they flood other nations with it. And that makes Jordan less likely to want to jump on, to say, the BRICS idea. Yeah. But at what cost? I wonder, what's the end game? We're $43 trillion in debt. Someone put those numbers together for me. 43 trillion is, what did they say? It's 2,000 seconds before Jesus was born.
Oh no, I don't think so. I think it's way more than that.
But seconds.
Trillions.
Yeah, seconds. But anyways,
I think they told you billions, because
that's just to put the numbers together in your head. Yeah. Seconds. And I'm like,
people can even fathom what trillions is.
Yeah. And so what's the end game on that?
It's way more stars than are in the sky.
Yeah. What's the end game?
Senator Lee had a good example on Monday when he was speaking to we had a crowd of 300 people in 3 different rooms we overflowed into. And he noted that when he was first elected in 2010, the deficit was roughly 13 trillion. And right now it's at 35 trillion. And he's been in 14 years? And we wonder why. because we have, there's an endorsement video that Senator Rand Paul did for me. And he said, Republicans, Democrats aren't just the problem, it's Republicans.
Oh, yeah.
We need good Republicans. Yeah, we need good Republicans, people who actually are Republicans.
Tim O'Connor made a comment on our page that says Republicans are complicit. Yes. And he's absolutely right, because we have not been able to decipher between Republican and Democrat. And this isn't just our current electeds. Yeah. This is going on now for decades, where you can't tell the red and blue side. They're so purple there that Republicans are complicit in this spending, either by voting for it or just turning the other side.
And I want to throw a shout out to Tim. Tim is a libertarian behind enemy lines in the great state of New York.
Nice.
Poor guy. He's deep in it.
But you saw how Trump's turnout in the great state of New York went.
Yeah. Well, he's in upstate, but it is sad. The Republicans haven't had a good showing since Eisenhower. That's a lot to chew on. A matter of fact, the best showing since Eisenhower was the Democrats. Well, the Republican Congress and the Democrat president under Bill Clinton.
Oh, with Newt Gingrich and kind of the Tea Party.
That's the last time we ran without a deficit, and our deficit to GDP is 150%. I mean, that's, if you did that in your home, you would get telemarketers calling saying, "Hey, you want to combine your debt?"
Yeah. Get another credit card.
Yeah, it's true, and many Americans, unfortunately, are experiencing that right now in their homes because of the state of the nation, and that's insane. And so, I deeply appreciate working with Celeste. I need to, say that I appreciate she's here, she's hands-on, she's great at those things. As a new congressperson, I know that there's probably so much we don't know when you get there. And I'm curious. Like the rest of the Zapruder film. You don't know that. I'm curious, what do you do? How, you're one person out of 485, I think. And
435, yeah.
You're one person out of 4 in the state of Utah. How do you rally? Because we have the advantage right now, but it is so, I hope the scales are tipped big time in November, but it's how do you rally everyone to get on the same page?
Yeah. So to your first comment, it reminds me of, and I'll just make the disclaimer too. I actually worked in Washington, D.C. for 9 years. I worked the National Defense Authorization Act. This is not my first rodeo. So when it comes to, hey, maybe she just doesn't know what's going on or this, that, no, I'm not offering contrast uninformed, if you will. This is not, I'm familiar with how the process works, how congressmen and staff have the ability to vote yes or no, have influence before it even gets to that point.
You actually worked on many bills, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. The National Defense Authorization Act is perhaps one of the biggest bills that passes every year. And I've worked in some way, shape, or form with that. And then the other thing to your comment, it reminds me of what I heard in combat often. I was in a helicopter that was shot down. I've had soldiers that have saved my life. I've been in a lot of different crazy situations as a Green Beret, special operations, and coming out of those, as the commander, one of my responsibilities is to officially recognize my soldiers, write them up for awards, for citations. I would argue I have a soldier who's probably at least a Silver Star, if not more, who saved my life. And as I would engage in that exercise with my leadership, I had a sergeant major who would say, hey, Captain Jenkins, I hear you, but didn't he just do his job? Why does he need a ribbon for doing his job? And so I reference that because of course I'm going to fight for our water and land. Of course I'm going to show up. That's our job. That's the bare minimum of what you should expect from me or from Celeste or Chris Stewart, that we will show up. That's what you're hiring us to do. So nobody gets a ribbon or a pat on the back for that. That's the bare minimum you should expect from us. What you should expect is where the difference is in everything else. How am I going to vote on spending? How am I going to vote on protecting your individual liberties when I'm back at DC? That's where the huge difference is. Protecting our water and land, showing up, there's a difference in standing up. You're going to have me show up, but I'm also going to stand up for our Constitution and for the things we were talking about, spending and so forth. But how does one person do that?
Yeah.
How does one person do that? You be one person. You be a voice. Because where there's one person standing up, there will soon be two. There will be three. And I've been saying this over and over on the campaign trail. And I had someone at the state convention when Senator Lee was standing by me at my booth and we were talking. This delegate came up to me and he said, Colby, you've been saying this, that you'd be one voice and then there would be two, then there would be three. And he said, and he looked at me and Senator Lee and he said, that one voice is now two. And those are two powerful voices for Utah. And then there will be three, then there will be four. So that's my approach.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
You're hiring me to be that voice, not to be bulldozed, not to have the speaker twist my arm and say, you better vote this way or else. No, I've been in a gunfight, so I welcome anyone to twist my arm and try and give me pressure. I'm there to vote for you.
That's amazing.
I'm going to wet blanket it for a minute. So
okay, yes,
everyone
please.
Hold your horses. Okay. What do you do? Worst case scenario. Joe Biden wins again.
Don't knock on wood.
And the Congress ties out, or the Democrats get a slim majority and they start talking about their usual talking points. Now, honestly, when the Democrats have a majority, they rarely touch individual rights because they don't want to touch them when they're strong, because that means they lose the next go round. Just like Republicans are finding out with Roe versus Wade, I think. But how do you function in that environment? Do you try to find Democrats that are amenable to your arguments, or how do you work that?
Yeah, two things come to mind. One is the experiences I've had in my combat operations. When I was in Afghanistan, I had to work with literal tribal chiefs, people who wore turbans and man dresses, and they didn't look like me, they didn't talk like me, and they wanted things that were not in alignment with what I needed. But I still had a mission to accomplish, and there was no way it was getting accomplished if I didn't find a way to team with them. And so I had to go to their mud huts. I had to drink gallons of nasty green tea and spend that time with them and build those relationships of trust. But that didn't mean I just dumped buckets of rifles and ammunition in their tents and said, here, yeah, I trust you. No, I had to build those relationships of trust, but find a way that they could support my mission so that we could be successful together. And similar in Colombia, when I worked with Colombian colonels, my mission was to rescue American hostages. The Colombian colonel's mission was to kill drug guys, to kill the narco traffickers. But we couldn't be successful independent. We had to work together. And so just that mindset is how I will approach working with reaching across the aisle, if you will, in Washington, D.C., finding how I can advance our mission, because I work for you, our mission, but not at the expense of mission success. And my boundaries are, I imagine that I'm standing on a constitutional platform, like a circle. And within that circle, I'll negotiate all day. I'll reach across the aisle. But the minute someone pulls me off, I'm 1 foot standing off, and they're saying, hey, now let's compromise. Let's allow the government to spy on Americans without a warrant, because we're going to give them a lot more rules. We'll tell the FBI they've got 55 more rules now. and it'll be better. And that's literally what happened. And so that you'll find me negotiating within the bounds of where I'm supposed to be with anyone, but I'm not going to compromise.
That's like saying, we are going to force feed you the lawn landmine, but we'll make sure it's 2 days old, not fresh out the dog.
The common ground thing, I think we need to remember every day. People have gotten into these tribal mindsets and idea mindsets, and not that I say it's wrong, because it's hard to find common ground with some people, but at the end of the day, we have to have our non-negotiables, and we have to make sure that I'm even seeing Democrats say, well, no, we do need to secure the border. We do need to know who's here. And they're finding that. It just seems that the Democrats tend to less compromise, really.
Yeah.
The Republicans always give more, and they tend to ask. And I think, I'm always curious what happens if we have a repeat of what happened last presidential election, when the Congress is asked to confirm the election, when there were still questions regarding the outcome and questions regarding these key states that actually had a little question in their integrity of their election integrity. Do you know what you would do in that? I mean, what you can do if that happens to us again?
Yeah. Well, first let's get there. I mean, we have our presidential candidate sitting in a courtroom with his future in limbo. I mean, holy smoke.
Well, let's not to mention the what was it? The New York prison guards, whatever, went and met with the Secret Service so they can figure out what would jail time look like for him. We're in an interesting
Did you just
time.
Say dimension? Because that made me think immediately.
Did I say dimension?
Of our current president.
The Freudian split there. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
You would think we were in Venezuela or some other place watching this.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is you can still be president if you're fined with a felony. You can still be the president elected, if you're out of the prison in New York City. But I think what this court case has done, if anything, is it's woken the other side up to go, wait a minute, there's nothing that sticks here. This is the most highly investigated man in the world.
Yes.
And they can't throw anything that sticks. So they have to be, this is so scandalous. The power of the DOJ to actually take down a president. This would just be unprecedented in the United States, not in other countries that have fallen over and over. But I think that if that were to happen, I don't even know what Congress can do.
Yeah.
I just love that while they're doing that, the Democrats come out and say, Putin's just a strongman mafia leader.
Oh, yeah. They're talking out of both sides of their
Go
face.
on. Do tell.
Yeah. And so to answer your question, what would I do? Well, I have to do what you're hiring me to do. I have to make sure I investigate. I have to make sure that I'm confident that the process that has been completed is that I can come home and look you in the eye and say, I think it was true and sound. And as we know, the likelihood of that is a stretch right now. Just look at our own Utah election. We have mail-in ballots that are going out in just over a week, and they're going to sit for 3 weeks. I mean, how many of you maybe have college-age kids who've lived in your house, now they're at college, probably get 2 ballots because the party's chasing 2 addresses multiplied by thousands?
I hope not.
We need to clean our own house in here in Utah.
I 100% want in-person ballot, in-person voting, just because, let me lay it out like this. I don't like the government.
Weird.
The government they are a declaration of failure at every turn. The government has no successes that they can hoist on their petard. But by mailing out ballots, they get more votes, which makes them look like they're kind of a popular entity. I mean, look at the mail-in ballots of 2020. It boosted the numbers like crazy.
Yeah.
Remember, Trump got more people voted for the loser than had voted for the winner in any previous election. Everyone drink that in. So all of a sudden our government looks like it's a success. The loser got more votes than anyone else in history.
So the winner had to cheat
it,
extra.
What it is it looks like it's a smokescreen for failure.
Yeah.
You know?
I think my dad voted in that last election, and
Oh.
he had died 2 years prior.
Imagine what Chicago looks like.
Oh boy. Yeah.
My dad would appreciate that joke, by the way.
Yes. I was picking up what you put down.
If I find out that he voted for Biden, oh my goodness, would he ever just be livid?
Yeah. But yeah, Jared, I'm with you, and Holly too. Any effort in that the elections are state run. That's the beauty, if you will, of our federalism. But I would champion any effort to single day voting. There will be exceptions, military things like that, but certainly single.
You got to volunteer. You've got to sign up for the exception.
Yes, yeah. ID, not just a driver's license, but proof of citizenship. And Senator Lee's working on that now with others because there are states where you can get a driver's license without being a legal resident.
Yeah, they're called blue states.
Well, you should have to go down to your county clerk and say, I want to have, a special circumstance for my vote. Either I'm going to be somewhere else or I won't be available. And then the arrangements will be made. Either you get a mail-in ballot or the military runs it, you get a ballot overseas, whatever. But I would like to see more of that. And I'd like to see our elections go back down to where they deserve to be, where 8% of the population votes. Because I don't vote because I recognize it hasn't done any good. Not once has it been good. Maybe
you can't give up.
Maybe one day it will, but I'm a middle-aged man now. That's a lot to drink in.
Here's the thing people forget, though. You're right. You say you got to volunteer or at least apply for that special circumstance to be able to mail in a ballot. And I appreciate that, but it's got to be bigger than that. You want to vote in person, show up in person, voting day. And you should be absolutely knowing what's going on in your local county clerk's office, because I can walk in there anytime and see exactly the transparency in our county clerk's office is phenomenal. And she noticed that more people wanted to vote in person, so now she's opening up more in-person voting.
Awesome.
But those things require people that sit and talk about it. But those people maybe need to apply to be a ballot worker, a poll worker, or to gather ballots and work for the county. All these things take people being vested and actually vested interest in their government. And I hope that citizens will sleep at night and know their elections are secure because they actually have done the research on their elections happening in their county. And if they don't feel like they're getting heard, or if they don't feel like they're transparent or secure, then they are making noise, not just for you, the candidate, but for themselves. Yeah. And I'd like to also mention, you kind of just breezed past it, but you got endorsed by Rand Paul as well. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I met with him in person, and I did a lot of studying, a lot of preparation, and it wasn't just a casual conversation. It was Rand Paul in person, and
I just picture him turning a lamp on you.
Yeah.
He's got like a folder he lays out, taking a lot of notes. Yeah,
he was very.
That's a huge endorsement.
That is, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Thomas Massey, those guys go a long way in my book.
And another one that we haven't advertised really, but Rick Scott from Florida endorsed me, and he's could very well be the next Republican leader of the Senate. And if you look at his background and what he's already said, how he wants to change leadership in the Senate, it's tremendous endorsement and tremendous leadership. And then on the House side, the House Freedom Fund, which endorsed me against an incumbent Republican. They see the difference, and they're on the leading edge of defending our Constitution and standing up against spending and stuff like that. So, yeah.
It's a big one. It feels like we're a runaway right now. Like we're midway through the Weimar Republic, watching him inflate money. And I'm going to say it right now, the Republicans are not innocent on our inflation, including our previous president.
Easy now. Easy.
It's just a fact. None of them are innocent.
The power of the purse is with Congress, though, too. Do you remember
Exactly.
that?
Our government as a whole has devalued our currency. We are in inflation not because Putin invaded Ukraine and wants to kick Zelensky in the brown eye, not because of anything in the Middle East. We're overinflated because of our reaction to COVID. And the world supply lines are very tenable because of our reaction to COVID.
Well, our government has been so involved in our economy, and so is the Fed, that it's actually been. It's not just the prior administration or even this one. This is a slow leak that's becoming a fall that we've got to shut off.
Yeah, everyone should go and watch Calvin Coolidge's address about the 1920 collapse or 21 collapse. It was a bigger collapse than the collapse that led to the Great Depression. And his address is the government's job is not to guide or rescue the economy or something like that. He said the government's job is to let the economy do that for itself.
Yeah,
Let the free market prevail.
Rand Paul, you're speaking Rand Paul right there for sure.
Exactly. I really love Rand Paul. I think he's an exceptional human. And, I saw the Libertarian Convention.
Oh, boy.
And Trump was there.
We don't need to dog the libertarians tonight. It's early. They're licking their wounds.
They actually came out and, they wanted to talk to Trump about Fauci and the fact that he should be in jail. I mean, Rand Paul has been adamant.
Yes.
And I was a little disappointed that Trump even defended the way that he said, well, Fauci wasn't that involved. I'm like, sorry, that guy was on every press conference with you. You shut down the nation because of his guidance. And
then denials. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Donald Trump fan. I can't wait to represent him at National Convention. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, congratulations too. Yeah.
Thank you. I honestly I think he would lose nothing. Nothing. In fact, I think he would gain more if he just took some humbling and say, I listened to the wrong people. I should have never let the economy be shut down after that 15 days because we were all on the same page. We didn't know what we didn't know. It was a scary time. But once he was actually seeing his economy fall, he should have put the brakes immediately. And his answer was, well, I gave it to the states. I gave this to the states. Well, right. But
he should have restrained what he had control of, and that's Fauci. That's our medical bureaucracy that we have there. So he should have stepped in and said, all right, you guys, we're going to STF right now.
Well, the second
if a state calls you and asks you a specific question, you may answer it, but you're not going to go on CNN. You're not going to go out on the podium.
You're not going to personally invest in Pfizer.
You're not going to push masks. You're going to shut up.
Yes.
This is the thing is like so what I guess I'm getting at is that when you want to have a free country, a free country, you're going to have to go without, and you're going to have to do the work yourself without the government. And if the government were to step out like Calvin Coolidge tried to do, I mean, he was the GOAT when it came to actually putting a stop to these certain things, which we need another Calvin Coolidge. Bad. But I think what I'm saying is that you're going to have to go without. And the purse strings that are happening in Congress right now are going to have to they're going to have to stop. They're going to have to say, look, no, because every bill we vote on is killing our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids, all of our future. And so it's just very concerning when every bill that comes up, I think where it involves the government paying out money we don't have to build borders in Jordan and Egypt and in Ukraine, when our border's not even a thought, is insane to me.
Yeah. And And so that brings us to a culminating point. We in our district, we have an opportunity to change that by one, to change that calculus. And we have people, Senator Lee's put his neck out, endorsing me against, in the own delegation, against an incumbent, because he sees what we're up against. And we, it boils down to if Celeste has, and I'm not negative by nature. This is the contrast. If she's been voting like this in the short 5 or 6 months that she's been in, with me breathing down her neck, a challenger, imagine what's going to happen over 2 more years or 4 or more. And look at our delegation already, canceling each other out on individual liberties, on spending. Do we want more of that? That's not what you're hiring me for.
Anybody that says one person can't do something amazing is out of their minds. And that's why I think every candidate, everyone elected to that office, you have a huge responsibility. Mike Lee, everyone in the United States knows who he is. Same with Rand Paul. And yet their side's not in majority. And a lot of the bills they vote on don't even get yes votes. I mean, they vote against a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Because
they are all or nothing. It's Constitution or nothing. And that's how it should be. I applaud that. But there also, it's a time when one person does become 2, becomes 3, and it starts to breed that freedom. And let's fix this. And I don't know how we fix the debt. Do you have any idea? How do we fix the debt?
Well, it starts with a vote. We stopped voting for omnibus bills. We stopped voting for out of control spending. Imagine if Congress said, hey, in this last example, that the vote happened for that $1.2 trillion on a Friday afternoon before Easter recess. Imagine if you had, I know where I would be. I'd be on the steps of the Capitol with Instagram, whatever platform I could get, saying, I'm not leaving. We're finishing the job. Come on back, Congress. Come on back. Imagine if we actually worked through the weekend and tried to produce a bill that's a little bit better. We didn't send $500 million to Jordan, or for Republicans, we didn't send earmarked millions of dollars to clinics that do late-term abortions. Imagine if Republicans could actually delay their airplanes for 2 more days and do their job.
I'm sure the world would collapse, right?
Yeah.
Or there'd be overtime issues or something.
Yeah.
This is the thing. That would stop it right now. That would turn off the faucet. But we have a reservoir of debt. I would say an ocean of debt.
No.
How do we eliminate the debt? I don't know how, unless you destroy the Fed and say, we're done with the Fed, we're going to have our own thing, and we're starting from zero. I don't know how. Do you?
What revenge do you think the Fed would take on us if we
I'm just curious,
them?
Is there even a way to ever get out of this debt? I mean, even if we paid every single dime of our taxpayer dollars for the rest of 4 generations, it wouldn't pay off that debt.
Yeah. And we can't declare bankruptcy ourselves.
No.
Because China would come calling. Yeah, I don't know the answer to how to get us back to solvent, but I do know that you're going to hire me to start now, at least change the calculus going forward. And it's not that I'm just going to be no. Those potential no votes are actually a yes vote to something better. It's actually a yes to we're going to trim inflation. We're going to trim the pressure on your paycheck, because I'm not shoving it down your throat because I'm justifying the breadcrumbs that I can bring home. That's not okay. I don't help you. And that's kind of the frustration I feel on the trail from people who say, well, my Celeste shows up, she gets us this, she knows the issues. Well, yeah, that's the bare minimum of the job. Of course, I'm going to fight for water and land, but let's talk about everything else. Let's talk about everything else. And that's the contrast and story we're trying to tell.
So you come from, obviously, I mean, the fact that we're the same age just blows my mind. I'm just still amazed by that.
You're 31 too?
You're so grown up. You're
28.
so mature. Yeah.
Couple 28-year-olds.
That's right. Yeah.
A middle-aged man.
I think that there is something to be said about having a spine. Now, I know you worked in the Pentagon, And so, I'll just play devil's advocate. People say, well, you're going to be in the military complex. You're going to vote for military spending bills. I'm sure you've heard that or been accused of that. Do you think there's any relevancy to that? I mean, we have to have a strong military, but do we have to have it all over the world? Can we have it, Afghanistan was a bust. I mean, you brought that up first thing in the show, on our first show, which I was so relieved to hear. Yes, the military makes mistakes. Commander-in-Chief was the job there. And then you brought it up again in this show, which I love. I don't want anyone ever to forget about the pullout of Afghanistan.
Well, I have no issue with the way our military conducted themselves in Afghanistan or Iraq.
No, of course not.
I have a severe issue with our leadership deciding that we need to go in and topple all of Afghanistan because Afghanistan, barely a country, it essentially is two cities, because they were perceived to be harboring the bad guys. We could have went in, rolled the bad guys, and got out of there before lunch. And the Taliban wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
And Iraq.
We have to rebuild it. That's our whole thing. The complex doesn't work if we don't rebuild nations after we destroy them.
And what are we setting up to do in Ukraine right now?
Yeah.
And so two things, Holly, to answer your question. I've actually seen how the sausage gets made in the Pentagon. I've been in the bowels of that bloat, that bureaucracy. And so and I'm not saying I'm the expert, but imagine me now sitting on this side of the dais looking at the military witnesses where I used to sit and hearing their answers and their justifications or their Heisman. Well, we don't know that. We'll get back to you. Imagine me now saying, no, I don't think so. You have 1.2 million people that work for you, Mr. Secretary or General so-and-so or Admiral so-and-so. I'll be in your office for lunch Friday, and let's have that answer then. Or no, that's not okay. Or yes, it is okay. I agree. That's a great response. And then the second point is my youngest daughter is now at West Point.
Right.
And in less than 2 years, she'll be graduating, and she'll be a young lieutenant stepping into the Army. And so I have personal skin in the game, making sure that the military gets it right, that there is accountability, that my daughter will go where she's signed up to go. But heaven help me if she goes to Ukraine and dies while the French and the Germans and NATO could care less. Those are things that are going to be weighing into my decisions in holding the military industrial complex accountable.
Yeah, Ukraine is a heavy spot for me because, well, they've already experienced it. Ukraine has lost a generation of young men.
Yeah.
So is Russia.
Russia hasn't lost near what Ukraine has. Ukraine has experienced something that very few, and only World War I was the only experience on this level that other nations have felt in modern times, where they lost a whole generation. Cities have lost a whole graduating class, like everyone. And Ukraine is feeling that now. And I'm afraid we're going to see some things out of Ukraine in the future that's going to be.
I wanted to also bring up, again, devil's advocate, because I hear people talk. And so I said, look, if you think that, I'm going to ask him. So let's get into the next one. I don't think a lot of people know that you were basically drafted by Google to be a commander and help bring teams together, teams to work together in a tech world where you have all sorts of personalities coming together. And they wanted someone like you to help direct teams, and so they could work together, be cohesive, and make a success out of Google, which is pretty exceptional to me and a surprise, because to put you in the software world is just so funny. But Vivek too. I mean, he's got that background. It's definitely an amazing background. But did you ever lobby for Google? Because that's what I hear people say. Well, he lobbied for them. He was a lobbyist, and I say, oh, geez.
No, I've never been a registered lobby for Google or any tech company. I was actually hired to be with Google Fiber in the beginning of when I first was hired by, and I wasn't necessarily recruited. It was an extensive interview process to find the ultimate role. But I'm not a telecoms expert. They hired me, like you said, to be the program manager, to get the experts on board, open contracts, build relationships with the local municipalities, open up the state. I was in Florida. And then Google decided, we don't want to build the internet, at least in these exploratory markets. And so I actually lost my job 10 months into it. We moved my family. We were in Florida, new schools, bought a house, literally went into work, and our regional manager was there and said to me and the team, yeah, we've had a change of direction. We're shutting down Florida. Oh, okay. But to their credit, they gave us plenty of runway, and I was able to interview again and find another job that put me in people operations, where I was able to help new product teams as they were trying to stand up teams, help understand the type of expertise that was needed for that given product, how the recruiting pipeline is working, and then to help those new leaders build the teams. How do the personalities fit together? What are basics of team building? And then I'd go to the next team. And so, yeah, that was, and as I would do that.
If you can build teams in Google, you can build teams in Congress.
Yeah, there's all kinds. You know, an interesting example, my last Pentagon boss was a 4-star admiral. He was the number 2 guy for our whole military, the vice chairman. My first boss at Google was a female woman, openly gay lesbian. So talk about 2 complete different ends of this of the spectrum of leadership.
Well, then, I mean, now our admirals are probably transgender.
Yeah, but let him finish his statement.
But I bring that up because my first Google boss was incredible. She's a wonderful woman, and she actually endorses me in this, even though we're on completely different ends of the political spectrum. But back to my earlier experiences, I've learned how to cooperate and work with people who don't think like me, don't look like me, different upbringings. But that doesn't mean I compromise on who I am. I can learn how to advance my mission success and build a team along the way. And so
you don't ask her to compromise who she is.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Both of you get to be who you are and find your strengths in order to make a successful end game. And that's, again, I picture Google and any tech business as just being an HR nightmare. For anyone who goes in. It's terrifying to me. I think I have nightmares about waking up and working in like Google or something.
Yeah. You got to make the Zims and the Zats work together.
I just don't have that much time to even memorize new grammar. But I think that it's also a testament to the cesspool that is in DC. So all of them have good intentions, I assume. I don't think there are people out in the Congress that are just... Well, a lot of them have selfish motivations, I'm sure, but the people they represent are expecting them to do a job. Just like Google is expecting these different personalities to do this job to make this a success. Yeah. I mean, if you can get into an office in Congress and you do have the trust of the people, your boss, and then you can create cohesive teams to get the job done, which to me is to protect my constitutional rights, to protect this nation, and to watch the nation flourish, and to help our prosperity, which is our children and their children. I mean, if you can all get on the same page there because you just have strong leadership and people who respect each other, I think that we could get a lot of stuff turned around.
What if, I think it's been blaringly obvious that Citizens United has destroyed this country. I think there was a study that came out of, was it Harvard, about 5 years ago, that they did a study comparatively on what the people want, how often they get what they want. And it's something ridiculous, like 28% of the time. And then what big corporations want, or the ultra wealthy, and they get what they want up in the 70% of the time, which therefore makes us an oligarchy by definition. Right. And Citizens United, I think, has perverted our system. And do you think there would be support across Congress to write a law that sets it so that only citizens, not unions, not big business, only citizens can donate it just to re-elections? Let the lobbying argument still happen, because I believe lobbying is something that we need, something that we want. We need that argument to still happen. But so that only citizens can donate to re-elections. And that way, maybe that would restrict at least those numbers that
You mean
whatever
get rid of
college
PACs?
found out.
Could there be citizen
Yeah, no, you
PACs?
get rid of PACs. It's
PACs,
only
yeah.
citizens, individual donations.
Yeah.
Be very telling.
Yes, and realistically, no, that's not going to work right now, but it could work with a new class coming in. That's something that because the people who are there who've been feeding on the gravy train, they're not going to cut their nose off
No.
to spite their face. But the new guys, we can come in and say, let's look
You
at term
will? You'll
limits.
cut your nose off?
I'm there not for self-preservation. I'm there to vote for you. I'm not a career. I'm an old soldier by heart. I'm not there to be a career 30-year politician. And I'm feeling the pain of that fundraising. I hate it. I'm not. It's not what I wanted to do. But boy, just looking at my opponent, the DC money. And you can look at the Federal Election Commission filings. You can see the disparity between the amount of PACs from DC that have nothing to do with Utah that have contributed to my opponent. And now you see TV ads that she's doing, billboards all over the place. Those don't just happen for free.
Well, we have to be honest. I mean, if your idea worked, it would work. But if his idea was in place, you would watch the price of campaigning go. It would plummet.
Seriously, an average person would be able to run in 3 cycles.
You could get any average citizen. And this is something that sticks with me. Our first interview, you're the only candidate that's ever even got me emotional. And I don't know what it was that day, but I needed to hear your message that day, just about your why. Because you said out loud what I had been trying to say and get into words over and over and over. Why I keep doing what I'm doing. Why I keep keeping in the political game and voting and helping candidates and getting my voters together and excited. You said your reason was your children and your daughter who's in West Point and who is going to be serving this country. And there was just so much that stayed with me in our interview. But one thing that you made clear to me that I won't forget is I asked you, are you willing to serve and be somebody that is ready to put your money where your mouth is and upset the apple cart, and maybe you're voting no against the rest of the Congress that is Republican who want these spending bills, but it's our freedom, and you may not win in 2 years because you'll be such an upset. Are you willing to be a one-term candidate? And you said, absolutely.
Yeah.
If I'm doing the right thing, absolutely. If I'm standing on my principles. And that just sat with me because there's so many that are, I mean, even Mike Lee has run an additional term that he didn't anticipate running, and Rand Paul too. They didn't anticipate needing to be there this long, but I see a need for them, and I understand their running, and I understand their why. But if you don't take me as someone who wants to be a forever politician, you take me as someone who wants to enjoy the fruits of your labor, watch your children excel and grandchildren eventually, and you live in paradise. St. George is paradise, right?
It's 100 degrees right now.
Since I was in college.
It was paradise for the next couple months. It is not.
Yeah.
But
but I think that's important. Like you said, if I'm not going to, you're probably someone who would vote for limits, right?
Yeah, that's what the founders intended. They intended, especially for the House, 2 years to be a churn. I mean, clearly there has to be some measure of stability, but not 30 years, not Nancy Pelosi style, or what we've seen.
50 years, Joe Biden style.
Yeah. Well, here's another big measure of a politician. Where do they move when they're done? Where do they decide to live? Where do they reside? And too many of them reside in D.C. because that's where the wealth lies. That's where you're going to get rich and maintain a lifestyle.
Yeah.
There's good jobs waiting for you when you've been in office.
Well, one example, just Google Skyline Capital. Look who's running that. And look ask yourself, how did our former member start a lobby shop and then his staffer is a member of Congress? How does that work?
This always hurts me bad. This always hurts when you talk about this.
It doesn't hurt me because they never had my trust to begin with. And look, I like him. I do. On a personal level, I like everyone, but maybe I'm too jaded. You know,
Yeah.
that's maybe my problem. I mean, it would take some exceptional work to make me a believer again.
Well, Jared, hopefully for me, if I'm fortunate enough to win our team, and I can shake your hand a year from now, and you can say you're on the right track, then it'll be worth it.
All right, make me a believer.
Oh, geez, you have to vote first.
I
You
couldn't.
can't ask someone to make you a believer and not even go to the polls. Seriously, yes, really. You need to vote. That is your civic responsibility.
Jared, take a picture of you putting your ballot in the mail and text it to me, and I'll make it worth it.
I haven't voted in a very long time. I vote local.
Well, keep this in mind, and maybe we end on this with Holly, to your point about why I wouldn't change. I have too many friends who are in the ground, who've died for this Constitution, for our nation, for the ability for me to go and lead and not be true to their sacrifice. There's no way that's possible. And I have living soldiers and friends who've been in combat with me, who are donating to my campaign, who know me, who've been in combat with me, and for me to not live up worthy to their service would not be okay. And so those are the things, Jared, that I hope I can live up to, that would give you hope again, and Holly, that would keep me true to why you're hiring me.
Well, and I don't want us to end yet, because we
That's a
need to
good
get
note,
into
though.
that's beautiful. And please make him vote. My goodness. It's so frustrating, because he sits and talks about how messed up politics are and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what are you doing about it? We have a podcast. That's all we're doing about it.
Hey,
You're informing all these people, and then you're not even going and putting your vote in. So we encourage that. Give us your website, because this is something else. This is what I try to tell state delegates, and delegates especially that showed up for candidates at convention. Right now in our state, there's a disagreement that they don't speak for their neighbors, and that they don't really represent, the majority, which in the past has not been wrong. Let's be honest. We've seen people win at convention and especially governors, and then they just obliterate in the general. They lose at convention, obliterate in the general. So when the governor said the things he did, he wasn't wrong. So I look at delegates and I say, look, we have to go further. We have to host candidates. We've got to donate our money to them. We've got to talk to our neighbors about the whys, the reasons we're voting for them, what we've learned, sharing details about them. Because, if we just look at big money's going to have an impact on everyone.
Yes.
Now, so you have a donate option on your website at Colby, spell out for Utah.com, and we'll have that in the show notes, right?
It's already in the show notes. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm looking here at your website. We've got it up there, colbyforutah.com. You've got Mike Lee endorsement, Rand Paul endorsement. That's heavy. Cash Patel endorsement, Tommy Tuberville endorsement.
And
You got the Vivek endorsement up.
Vivek, yeah.
Yep.
And most importantly, I have the endorsement of my family. Those three lovely ladies. That's what matters.
That is a big endorsement.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So which daughter is it that is in West Point right now? The one on the left or the right?
With the brown hair on my right, and then
The one on your right with
Your
the
wife's-
lighter
your
colored
wife's
hair?
twin.
Yeah, my wife's twin by her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful family.
Well, I wish her the best there at West Point. I know that's
Thank you.
that's a pretty heavy that's a heavy thing to take on as a young person, as a young lady. How old were you when were you a lieutenant when you went into special forces?
It's the captain.
So you went in as a captain,
Yeah.
People-
right.
do
a
people-
little
I don't-
bit older.
We talked about this last time, but I don't think people realize you also went to West Point, but I don't think people realize getting into West Point is not easy.
Yeah.
You said there's 4,000 chosen?
No, there's roughly about 13,000 that apply every year, and then that gets necked down to about 5,000 that get a congressional nomination, like their senator or congressman nominates them. But then from that 5,000, West Point chooses about 1,000 every year.
See, do you guys realize that? And then they go through all these years and they're learning combat experience, college experience. They're learning how to be leaders and how to run missions. And
How to wear that ring and
just
haze
I don't
the
wear my
younger
ring.
guys. No,
it's such an exceptional
for me
school
as a
and
veteran,
honor.
the exception is that you earn the cross arrows, and that's a tough course. That's a course that washes a lot of people out. I imagine it's equally as tough, or if not tougher, on the officer side. I think that's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your service too, Jared.
I had easy time because nobody shot at us when I was in.
Yeah, but you raised your hand. It takes us all to do that.
So tell me, how many people are you going to nominate if you become a congressman? You only get to do one, right? And is it going to be your own kid?
Yeah. I don't have any more to nominate, so she's in.
She's your
but,
youngest.
yeah. But it depends on the year, really. There's kind of a quota of how many each state can have in, if I understand it correctly. And so you can nominate a pool of candidates, but then West Point may only pick so many based off of what the state has, I believe.
But it's got to be an incredible honor to be nominated by someone in Congress that went to West Point themselves.
Yeah, I'm personally excited to be involved in that process. Like my daughter she's the only girl from St. George, the city of St. George, to ever go to West Point. I'm the only from Duchesne County that's ever gone still. And that's because I had incredible people that helped me and believed in me.
It's amazing. And only 5 years ago, you just, that's really great to be 30 and a graduate of West
Just
Point.
a few years ago, yeah.
With a child going to West Point. That's so awesome. I hope that people that really believe in your message, and you've been on our show before, and if you haven't seen the first one, we got a lot of time with Colby when we first started, and it was a great interview. We highly go back and watch that. And this is before you got here. I mean, you've been doing a lot of groundwork, and the delegates really, really liked your message.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So you're going up against an incumbent. That's always difficult. So, again, money is different. It's just a different scale. And that's the reason a lot of incumbents don't lose. It's because not only are they getting backing from big PACs, but the party members that get their own PACs start helping. So please donate. It's $5, $10, $1,000, whatever you can, and then show up and get to know this candidate.
Donate, give your
Friday
time. And for those of you who, and I'm going to say this, for those of you who believe in his message, make sure you go out and vote.
Thank you, Jared. Yeah,
Jared. That was really deep.
It's heartfelt.
And
came from down about here.
I have yard signs of yours.
Thank you.
And I want to make sure that anybody who would like a yard sign, you can just private message me or put a message on here. We can give you the pickup options of where to get your signs. I mean, if you want to support Colby and have a yard sign, any candidate actually, and we've got signs available for all the candidates running. And on that note, we had a question in our comments. Have you come out to support either Lyman or Cox, or have you been endorsed by?
I haven't sought their either endorsement, but I'm supporting Phil Lyman. Yes, yeah.
And he's a local boy of yours down there too.
Yeah, I
Very
got
local.
Where St. George is taking over.
got to know him really well.
Too. You know what? The North has had it. We've ruined it. Let's give it to you, Dixie side. See how it goes.
How dare you say such a horrendous word on this show?
Well, keep in mind, I grew up in Roosevelt, which is north.
The North, yeah.
We've been the
Davis kind of considered Maine in the Civil War, probably.
Yeah,
Really
the Davis
cold.
County. The Davis
No
County
one understands when you talk. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So we also have Phil Lyman signs, and I know Lyman's been out a few times and has done some meetings with you, correct? Like you guys have both been together at the Pratt's house for meetings.
Yeah, I haven't been there at the same time, but yeah, similar support and for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so everybody please come Friday, 6:30 at Brad and Kay's home. My wife and I will be there. Bring your questions, bring your support. This is a job interview, and so I'm there to be interviewed by my employers.
Well, I'm asking for a friend. Are you going to have shirts there?
Are you gonna have shirts?
I don't even have
throwing some chum out in the water for the fish.
Yeah, I don't even have a shirt. I don't even personally have one. There does my wife, but we're working on it. Yeah.
It's so funny because I run into people and I'm like, that's a cool shirt. I can't even see it though. It's the joke. It's funny. It's a great shirt. You can't even see it. Once you put it on, half of you disappears.
So you got the cloaking shirt. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I want to make sure that I hope that you know, I will be ballot watching and vote watching on the night of the primary, and people need to know ballots are going to go out, and they actually, it's soon.
Yeah, next
ballots,
week. Right?
Yeah, they are going to be coming out. Sorry, I have to get the exact day because we need to make sure that everybody knows that you're going to be getting them in the mail first week of June. And so you will be able to please vote early. This is something as a party person that we are really trying to encourage. When you get your ballot, vote as soon as you get it. Turn it in. That is huge when it comes to getting our responses back quickly, kind of knowing, it gives us an idea of who in the county has voted, where we need to focus resources. A lot of times counties don't usually donate to the state campaigns. That's what we're trying to rally to raise money for the state to be able to donate. But this primary is huge and we need to have a great turnout. So one good thing is you get your ballot. I like to vote in person, so I'm horrible because I wait till day of. But for those of you that do mail-ins and love it, vote early. Vote early, get the numbers in so that it's already in. And then if you have any questions, go to your county clerk's office and watch the integrity of that office. Watch the way they do things. Be a part of it. Offer to help on June 25th. That's voting night. And I hope we get results in pretty early. And it is just the Republican races in this primary, but they're all so important. Ballot down. We need to make sure that we are showing up. I'm
not a Republican.
Well, you should register. Well, it might be too late for you to register.
You know what? I was leaning towards the libertarians, but then I saw their convention. So never mind that. Holy cow. Did the libertarians what are they doing? What? Oh my gosh. You know what? Here's what the libertarians are doing. They've got a presidential nominee that's going to pill the weirdos off of the Democrat side. Not the weirdos. They're going to pill
the
Democrats that like freedom off. Man, they couldn't have gone harder for Trump on accident if they tried.
Good point.
Yeah. He celebrates the happy hour, the reading to kids, the trans. This nominee.
He likes guns, so there's that.
Well, and you know what? I see your favorite group just gave the endorsement. The NRA just endorsed Cox.
Oh. What? The NRA did? I'm shocked. Hold me back. Whoa.
Endorsements mean a lot, folks. And they're not easy to get, especially if you're not an incumbent.
Who's the GOA endorsing? Who's the United States Pistol Association endorsing? Those are people who actually fight for rights.
Would they make you register?
The thing I like about the NRA is loud, so all the dummy Democrats point at the NRA. And the GOA gets ignored over here.
They're the smokescreen. Yeah.
Yes, they're a smokescreen.
Oh, yeah.
We've had you on for almost an hour and a half, and we got 6 minutes left. So, Colby, we're going to shut up, let you have it, let you convince people, humana, and get you out of here.
Well, first, thank you both for continuing to lead. That's what makes America great, is having people like you that step up and lead. And so I appreciate that. So for me, what you're going to get if I'm fortunate enough to be hired by you, is what you've gotten for 3 decades already. And that's service to our nation. That's defense of our Constitution. I hope in this new role, I won't have to bleed for the Constitution, but that's what I've been willing to do for 3 decades now, 31 years actually. And I continue to serve in the military as a colonel in the reserve. I have the flag still on my shoulder. So it's that oath to the Constitution is central to who I am. And that just extends to all the other duties that you should expect and demand from me as your representative. You should demand that I limit the federal government. You should demand that I control spending. And then you should demand that I defend your individual liberties. And so just to close, harken back to our founding fathers. Why did they start a revolution? What were the issues that were gnawing at them that caused them to now be willing to risk their lives? Well, they were tired of the British government overreaching into their lives, overregulation, hyperinflation. They were tired of the British soldiers coming into their quarters and taking possession and control of their property. They didn't have a right to privacy. So our founding fathers said, enough, essentially. And that's what led to the revolution, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. Well, how many of you, us Americans now, small business owners especially, feel those same things?
I'm a small business owner and I feel it.
Same thing, overregulation, taxation. Do not feel like you're represented. Your individual liberties are being compromised. Your right to privacy is out the door at best. Well, the only way you can control that is to vote for someone who honors and defends the Constitution, because that power of the purse resides with the legislative branch. And the 2nd Congressional District has 1 seat that can help influence that. And with me, the contrast you're going to get right now is clearly evident. I am not going to vote for crazy government spending, for omnibus packages. I'm okay with standing up and saying no, and staying with the Republicans and fighting for what conservative Republicans demand. I'm not going to vote to allow the government to spy on Americans without a warrant. That's why we have the 4th Amendment. I'm not going to rationalize on defending your constitutional rights, your First Amendment, your Second Amendment. If that's already happening on our 4th Amendment, which my opponent has done, imagine where it's going to end. With me, you're not going to get compromise. You're going to get defense. I may vote no on those things, but I'm voting yes to good on other things. But ultimately, I'm seeking your vote, your employment to work for you. There's not going to be any daylight between the fight for water and land that we already have, the representation that already happens. That's the baseline of what you should expect from me. What I hope to bring for you is leadership, judgment, and accountability that's been combat tested, that's been proven already, and that will be accountable to you. And so I welcome your support, welcome your vote, but more importantly, now tell 10 of your friends about this message. Help scale this message truly so that it can win. And that's where we're at right now. So thank you for your time.
Outstanding.
We'll see you Friday night at the Pratt's house, 6:30. Yeah. I'll be there Friday night in Tooele.
Are you going to take Maddie with you there? This is the joke question to end it off. Are you going to take Maddie with you there and have an earpiece in so that when AOC and what the heck's her name? MTG get to arguing with each other, she can tell you what they're saying so that you don't look like the rest of the congressmen. They're looking at each other like, what's
what do they
going
mean
on?
By eyelashes?
What's happening?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Baby girl.
It's a joke.
What a joke. Yeah.
The best was watching the older congressmen. They're looking at each other like,
What did she just say?
what's happening? Where are we at?
Not okay.
I appreciate your dedication to this country and the service of this country. And I certainly appreciate your family, the sacrifice I'm sure they've made to have somebody, like you in their lives is pretty great. And they do it out of complete love and support. I'm excited. I hope I can be there Friday. I'm just going to see what my job permits. And then
we'll be in here until, close to that time, and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
But for sure, everyone, that's Colby Jenkins. Go and check out his website.
And hey, like and subscribe this channel, and then share this video. Share it in your on your own page and let your friends just watch it. It's for those in the district and for those not in the district, because here's my opinion. If Blake Moore was my congressman, I want to see we've had his competitor on here and it was a really great show, but if he's in my district, I want the light to be shown on somebody who's not an incumbent, who is running for a seat out of the reasons you're doing it, your whys, the plan that you have. I think every single person should have to run against someone like you. Because if it doesn't make them better, then that person will get the seat, rightfully so. I mean, I think competition is important. It makes you either better at your job, and I think in the very stressful time like a competition, how you behave is very reflective of who you are. And I just think that you would not make mistakes. If you had challenged her in your race, you wouldn't make mistakes.
Very true.
Yeah.
But anyways, colby4utah.com. Go there, check it out. If you want to donate, there's a easy to hit button there. If you want to volunteer, if you're looking for a yard sign, reach out to Holly. She can hook you up. If you're not living close to Holly, reach out to your Republican chair.
Kay Pratt also, if you're living in Tooele City, she'll have the availability. She has signs. And then I'm in Stansbury Park, and we've just got bases where you can come pick up the signs you need and want. And we're so grateful to those of you who are using your signs, especially if you live in a high traffic area. If you live down a circle, down on a dead end like I do, it may not be the best place to put a sign.
Your two neighbors will see it.
If you can put it out on the entrance to said neighborhood, get permission if it's private property, but make sure that you, I can always use help in placing signs, and if you want to reach out and help us do that, just message me. Jared, I'm reaching out to you, brother. I need your help placing signs.
I'll message you. Hey, Colby, we'll cut you loose. Thank Maddie again for being the go-between.
She's great.
She's an outstanding young lady. Colby, thank you for stepping up career-wise and stepping up in this portion to,
I think
take
we
over.
should go there after our show.
I'll try to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We do our
say
show
no.
till 6.
Yeah.
So
But thanks again, everyone. Have a good night.
don't say goodnight yet, because we've got more to talk about once we say goodnight.
We got more to talk about. But this has been Colby Jenkins. We want to thank him for coming on. And Colby, you have a very wonderful night.
Yeah, enjoy sleeping in your own bed for a night, because you probably have not been doing that very often while you're traveling.
Yeah, but it's worth it. But thank you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Have
we'll
a
see ya.
great evening.
Hey, bye.
Bye.
Bye.